Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the SportzMoose Media Podcast for the week. Ricky Dean, along with Rick Burkett, as we get set to talk a little high school football in the state of Alabama. Rick, to put it in a way that we all understand it, of course, being from the agricultural area of the state of Alabama down here, we're in the short rows now. I mean, we're getting close to the end. I can remember, way back when we first got this season started, back in the month of August, and how hot it was. And now we've got cool, crisp high school football evenings and great football games, because now you've got good against good. For lack of any other way to put it, I mean, you got good teams that are left, and the cream that we always talked about was floating, kind of making its way to the top. I mean, we're at the top now. These are the best of the best high school football teams in the state of Alabama that are left. And if we look at Class 7A, this is there were no 7A games this past Friday night, as the games have been set. The final state championship game for Tuscaloosa has been set for December the 6th, a Wednesday night in Tuscaloosa. Of course, it will be Central Phoenix City who advanced to the state final game with a big win over Mary G. Montgomery of Mobile. Central Phoenix City won that ball game by a score of 21-7. And then on the north side of the bracket, the Thompson Warriors, they got there by beating Hewitt-Trussville. And that game that between those two schools, 21-10, the final score there. So it will be Central Phoenix City will be the home team in that game in Tuscaloosa at Bryant-Denny Stadium. It'll be Central Phoenix City and Thompson for the 7A state championship in the state of Alabama.
Yeah, and congratulations to Mary G. Montgomery. And now we're seeing it in the other classifications, 6A through 1A too. But once you got to that semifinal round, there really aren't a whole lot of underdogs as you think of. Everybody can beat everybody else. And congratulations, Mary G. Montgomery. They gave Central Phoenix City the closest game they've had this year, so they can hold their heads high. And like I said, a lot of cousins went to school up there in Sims at Mary Montgomery. So congratulations. And congratulations, Thompson, for making it again. They beat a very good Hewitt-Trussville team, and with their ninth grade quarterback as their starter. So that'll be a good one, Central Phoenix City versus Thompson. And looking forward to that one for sure.
Yeah, that'll be a big game, and of course it starts off championship week there in Tuscaloosa as the Alabama High School Athletic Association, they host their championship games at the two biggest venues in the state. They rotate them between Tuscaloosa and between Jordan-Hare Stadium in Auburn, and whichever school, Alabama or Auburn, hosts the Iron Bowl during the week, then the other school, or during that particular year, the other school hosts the state championship games. And of course, as we saw this weekend, Jordan-Hare hosted the Iron Bowl this year, and then of course the state championship games for all classifications in the state will be at Bryant-Denny Stadium, and that will be on December 6th. December 7th and December 8th will be it's a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday type deal there on those games. So big games upcoming, and let's talk about, since we've talked about the 7A game and then again the final, just to reiterate that real quickly, it will be Central Phoenix City against Thompson, and that will be in Bryant-Denny Stadium. Central Phoenix City will be the home team for that game, so that's going to be exciting, and that's just a great venue to go see a high school football game when you get to see, because a lot of these teams that go up there, a lot of these kids that play in these state championship games, especially the seniors, they get an opportunity to play on the campuses of everybody's, just about everybody in Alabama is either an Auburn or an Alabama fan, and so getting to play come out of the tunnel on for a state championship game in one of these huge venues. I mean, it's really a treat for these kids that get to play in these games.
Sure it is, and that'll be a big one. You'll think it was a college game, Thompson and Central Phoenix City, with Central Phoenix City being on the home side. But I mean, there'll be enough people there. I mean, those are huge high schools, but there'll be a lot of people there for the rest of the games too. And it's of course, it's always a privilege to play in Jordan-Hare, Bryant-Denny, and even people from other schools that graduated from Foy or from North Alabama or South, they all still have their favorite, Alabama or Auburn. So you're exactly right about that.
So let's talk about the 6A playoffs. We've got games left. So this will be the semifinal games that we'll talk about, Class 6A all the way down to 1A. And you and I had the privilege the other night. We went over to Saraland and checked out the digs at Saraland. Now, I'm going to tell you one thing, folks, if you're listening, if you've never been to Saraland, Alabama, on campus at Saraland High School to see a football game, you owe it to yourself to go, because we talk about Bryant-Denny and we talk about Jordan-Hare. I tell you one thing, you'll not get closer to a college atmosphere at a high school game than you will by going to and enjoying a game at a place like Saraland High School. The doggone facilities are immaculate, for one thing, and then just the number of people there, the LED lighting that they do, the light show during the ball game. I mean, the fireworks,
the big board.
Yeah, the big video board. I mean, it's as close as you can get to a college football atmosphere without being at a college football game. And I'm telling you, well, you even mentioned, prior to us beginning to record, that there are smaller colleges around us within driving distance that don't have the facilities that Saraland has right here down the road from us.
That's right, and they're very nice people too. I mean, I think sometimes there's a little bit of stigma on their part. People think, oh, it's a real rich private school, right? And they're not really a private school. They're their own little school district they form. I forget what you call that. They're
city school. It's a city school district,
right? But it's the Saraland, and they're not part of that's their own school system, and it's a new school. And when you go on there on their campus, it looks like a university, like going to Spring Hill or Birmingham Southern or someplace like that. That's what it kind of reminds you of, and it's just immaculate. But the people there are very nice. I mean, they're not a bunch of rich folks, even though it may look like that when you get into the stadium. It's just that they have a big collective effort there, great fundraising efforts, and as you say, it's just as nice of a place as you're gonna find for high school football, artificial turf and all.
Yeah,
it's very nice.
Yeah, I was blown away by the how the facilities looked and everything, and the upkeep, and there again, you and I sat up there amongst people that we had never met before in our life, and we felt
right at home.
Yeah, we felt like when we left we had made new friends, because we sat up there with folks and just interacted, and they just love high school football just like we do, and so we had a chance to talk to them, and matter of fact, hopefully this Friday night we'll get another chance. We'll ride up the road and watch them take on this Pike Road team that they will be facing. So as we get set to talk about the game here, it's going to be Saraland and Pike Road. The Pike Road Patriots defeated Benjamin Russell this past week, 31-28 in the quarterfinals, in their quarterfinal game this past Friday night. And of course, Saraland, they emerged victorious against a very good Hillcrest Tuscaloosa team. Final score there was 31-21, and so that was those two quarterfinal matchups to get us to the semifinals. And Rick, man, there was just the other night. That was a great ball game. I mean, you talk about just tough defensive football, and then the doggone speed of these two teams on offense is just unbelievable. And I mean, you talk about college level accuracy from quarterbacks throwing the football and everything like that. I mean, it was everything that it was chalked up to be. That game the other night between Saraland and Hillcrest Tuscaloosa was really just really incredible to see.
Yeah, I think, and with some of the folks we were talking to, and they were asking, they actually asked our opinion about what we thought the game was going to be. And we told them, I thought Saraland would win the game, but I told the nice lady that I was sitting beside and that I think this is Saraland's could be their toughest game until they get to the state final. And I'll stand by that based on who they're playing with Pike Road. And Hillcrest gave Saraland all they wanted to, and still, Saraland won by 10 points. And but it was a pretty good game, and that's a common opponent for them because Pike Road lost to Hillcrest Tuscaloosa toward the beginning of the season, I'll bet. But Hillcrest Tuscaloosa beat Pike Road fairly handily, so they do have a common opponent. So I think Saraland, as they've been in every game they've been in this year, just about, they should probably be the favorite. And I'm looking forward to going again. Maybe we sit with the same people. They were very nice to us.
Yeah, looking back, as you mentioned, Hillcrest Tuscaloosa and Pike Road, they tied up the second week of the season, and Hillcrest Tuscaloosa beat Pike Road by a score of 30-6. They handled them pretty easily, and I tell you, we saw the other night, and we've talked about Saraland being jokingly saying that they were the University of Saraland and everything like that, and it was kind of funny because they even have shirts that say Saraland University. Some of the school teachers wear those around, but yeah, I mean, it's going to be a tough game for Pike Road to come in to that atmosphere, and win. I mean, Saraland's loaded. They're loaded for bear, and they will. I think certainly that they will be making their way to Tuscaloosa here. 2 weeks or another week from Friday night, 2 weeks from now, that they'll be playing for a state championship.
And I hope they do because they're a local South Alabama team. Pike Road is too. They're more over in the Wiregrass section, but yeah, good luck to Saraland, the Spartans.
Yeah, just kind of looking, at different things. I mean, Pike Road's had a good run and everything, but unfortunately, it looks like the state championship, in order to get to Tuscaloosa, you got to go through Saraland to get there, and it's just going to be a tough road to hoe for them as we look ahead. So we'll say this about that game: we're looking forward to going back and seeing Saraland again at their place. And my pick, if we were picking games, which we might as well, don't cost us anything to pick them. If I had to pick this game just head to head between Saraland and Pike Road, I would certainly say that Saraland gets the edge in that one. Yeah,
I would. If there were such thing as point spreads, I'd say they would be a heavy favorite.
Right.
Not to say it can't be done. I mean, I know teams that lose games earlier in the season and come back and beat the team that beat them in the playoffs. But yeah, Saraland just looks. I mean, they've got 5 or 6 Division I people have signed already with Division I schools on their team, so they're that good.
Let's look at the north side of the bracket now, as we've got the teams that will be playing in the semifinals in order to get an opportunity to go face who we believe is going to be Saraland and Tuscaloosa. You've got Clay Chalkville at 12-0 and Parker at 12-1. So those two teams are going to meet up on Friday night and play. The Parker Thundering Herd is that's really one of the first times I've ever really paid that much attention to Parker. I wasn't even sure what their mascot was, but Clay Chalkville is there a lot. The Cougars of Clay Chalkville, you hear them all the time. They've in looking at different ways of looking at things. Just since 1996. Clay Chalkville has qualified for the playoffs a total of 24 times. So they're there quite a bit. and have been there quite a bit of late. Anytime that you're talking about high school football in the state of Alabama in Class 6A, you hear the name Clay Chalkville come up. So this is going to be a very big game in the north side of this bracket to see who is going to wind up in Tuscaloosa. And, of course, if we look at Parker defeated Gadsden City by a score of 35-20 in their quarterfinal game, and Clay Chalkville of the Cougars defeated Muscle Shoals. They got all over Muscle Shoals 44-27, and so that's how they advance. And so that's going to be a big game that is going to be taking place in this one, and it will be played. It will be played at Clay Chalkville. Clay Chalkville will stay at home at Cougar Stadium on their campus there. So Clay Chalkville, the home team, Parker, the visitor, in the other side of the bracket, the north side of the bracket in Class 6A.
Yeah, and Clay Chalkville, for everybody wondering where they might be, they're up there in that Pinson Valley, Clay, Chalkville area up there, close to Sand Mountain, northeast of Birmingham. And like you say, they've got a lot of tradition. They beat Thompson earlier this year. Thompson's only loss in 7A. Clay Chalkville is the team that we've talked about in some of our other podcasts. If there's a team that can beat Saraland and play with them, I think it'll be Clay Chalkville. And that would be my pick. I think Clay Chalkville will handle Parker. Another Birmingham area team, Thundering Herd there. And Parker does have some tradition from, especially back in the 70s and 80s, I believe. They do have had some real good football teams back then. But anyhow, yeah, that should be a good one. But I think Clay Chalkville, they're sort of like Saraland. There's a lot of folks that think that those are the two best teams in the state, regardless of classification. But anyhow, I think that'll be a good game.
Yeah, if you look at common opponents for these two teams, Clay Chalkville and Parker, they've both played Mountain Brook, and Parker beat Mountain Brook 13-10. Clay Chalkville beat Mountain Brook 17-13. You drop down to Huffman. Parker defeated Huffman very handily, 56-0 in a game earlier in the year. Clay Chalkville beat them, though, 72-0. And then Oxford, both teams played Oxford. Parker beat Oxford 21-14, and Clay Chalkville beat Oxford 28-14. So you would, based on the scores, just looking at the scores and common opponents, you got to give Clay Chalkville the edge in this one over Parker.
Yeah, agreed.
So as we continue now, and that takes us down to the 5A matchups. Of course, Eufaula has had a very good year this year. Eufaula's traveling over here to our neck of the woods down here on the Gulf Coast in the state of Alabama, and they will take on the undefeated Gulf Shores team from Gulf Shores High School, and so that's going to be a big game there in that one. And if we look at that, Eufaula is going to be playing at Gulf Shores. Mickey Miller Blackwell Stadium is the name of the stadium there in Gulf Shores, on campus at Gulf Shores High School, and so Eufaula is going to come into town with their very good football team. Eufaula defeated Demopolis by a score of 20-17 in a very hard-fought battle in the quarterfinals of Class 5A. Here in the state of Alabama. So the Tigers enter this next game that they have with a 10-3 record, and so Gulf Shores is undefeated. The Gulf Shores Dolphins, they defeated Hanley by a score of 35-14 in their playoff game this past Friday night. The Dolphins have a 13-0 record. They were 8-0 in Class 5A Region 1, and so they're loaded. Gulf Shores has just got a great football team. I've been following them all throughout the year. Of course, you and I have talked about a lot of the schools in the Region 1 areas. That would be, Mobile, Baldwin County, the areas right around here with us. And so we've talked a lot about Gulf Shores. Gulf Shores just a very, very good football team.
Yeah, Gulf Shores, they're undefeated. They handled everybody they played, including a very good Headland team that that had beat UMS Wright the week before, and looks like Gulf Shore's handled them pretty well, and so it'd be nice if we could get down there and watch them sometime. But like I said, it's a pretty good. It's a lot farther trip for us than some of these other games have been. But Gulf Shores, the Dolphins have had a great season this year.
So that'll be the Class 5A South Region. That'll be the semifinals. That'll be the Gulf Shores Dolphins taking on Eufaula, and that game will be played in Gulf Shores. So that's a big game right there. As we continue to look at games right around us, or games in this game won't be right around us, but this will be the next one that we talk about. Class 5A, the semifinal, the other semifinal in the north side of the bracket will be Guntersville taking on Ramsey at Ramsey. So a big couple of football games here in Class 5A, and of course this being the north side of the bracket. I got a lot of kinfolks up around Guntersville. We've talked about that before. There's keels running around all over the place up there, and of course my great-grandparents were from the small community of Grant, Alabama, up there near Guntersville, just north and east of Guntersville, Alabama. So I'm quite familiar with that area of the country. The Guntersville Wildcats, they played Pleasant Grove and beat them 31-21 in the quarterfinals this past Friday night. And Ramsey, they defeated Moody, got all over them 40-27 in the quarterfinals of their chance to play in the semis now. And so the Ramsey Rams will be the next opponent for Guntersville, and I'll tell you one thing: this will be another battle in this classification in Class 5A. It's going to be a war up there at Ramsey as this game gets set to be played on Friday night.
Yeah, that's right. Guntersville's I think they were ranked number one, but they're up there. They were number one seed, and they were undefeated. I think they had can't remember who beat them, but anyhow, just the one loss. But they've kind of cruised through the playoffs without a whole lot. But Ramsey be a different story for them. Ramsey's kind of having a Cinderella season, and so it should be a good one, Rick.
Yeah, while you were talking about that, talking about the one team that defeated Guntersville this year was AHSAA, which is right up there, close to. They all are within a rock's throw of each other, and AHSAA in a very hard-fought game beat them by 10, beat them 29-19 in a game that was around about week 7 or 8. So in the high school season this year, so that was their only loss of the year, was that game against AHSAA for Guntersville. So that's going to be a good football game, and of course they will certainly play hard as both teams come in. Guntersville 12-1 and Ramsey 11-2. So it's going to be a hard-fought game, and of course the winner of this one will end up in Tuscaloosa playing for a state championship. So a lot of marbles on the line in this one. Yeah.
I mean, I think Ramsey will probably be given the edge in this one, but I certainly wouldn't count Guntersville out.
Yeah, well, it's going to be very close. I think one of the only things that would give Ramsey the edge in this one is the fact that they're playing the ball game at their place. They're playing at home.
At their place, yeah, that's right.
And there's a lot to be said for that, especially in these games. The finals, the state championship finals, are basically neutral fields. So you really don't have a. It's going to be good on good in a neutral location, but this final round of the playoffs, I mean, it's a home and away situation, so you're actually having to travel to the other team's location, the place that they're used to playing, and there's something to be said about getting to sleep in your own bed and dress in your own locker room and stuff like that, getting ready for a high school football game on Friday night.
Especially, like I say, with high schoolers, and but us saying all this, I mean, once you make it to the semifinals, It's all been kind of sorted out to some degree. You still got a couple of heavy favorites, but there are no real surprises on who wins or loses in any of the semifinals. I mean, any team can beat the other team.
Let's move down to Class 4A. In the semifinal games there, kind of surprising when we look at 4A. We follow a lot of 4A schools right here, right around us, and surprisingly enough, there's really not anything. There is a South Alabama representative, but South Alabama is basically represented with schools from around the Montgomery area. They're representing the South part and the surprise team in all this is Booker T. Washington. The Booker T. Washington Golden Eagles, as they defeated Jackson. We talked about Jackson all year long and really thought Jackson was, one of the big dog teams in Class 4A, and we were expecting Jackson to play for a state championship, and Booker T. Washington goes to Jackson and knocked them off. Well, actually, no, that game was played at Booker T. Washington, but Booker T. Washington knocked them off 20-17. And
hey, look, all three playoff victories so far for Booker T. Washington are upsets. They started the season upsetting a 2-seed, American Christian Academy, 22-12. Then Handley was ranked number 1 in 4A at one time. I don't know if they finished that way, but they may have even finished that way. But I just know Handley was a very good team, just beating the stuffing out of everybody. Booker T. Washington upset them. And then the team you and I thought had a good chance to win the 4A crown was Jackson, the Aggies. And Booker T., we were having our after game meal at typically at the Waffle House the other night. And then when you called out the score, he said, "Hey, Booker T. Washington beat Jackson." And I was like, So they've had 3 upsets in a row, and they're going to have to upset another one if they win this one coming up.
Yeah, they're playing a tough Catholic Montgomery team that is 13-0. But Booker T. Washington, their record is 9-4. They've lost some ball games, but I tell you one thing, right now, Catholic of Montgomery better be careful because obviously Booker T. Washington, they're playing their best football of the year right now.
Right.
And a lot of times, you hear coaches talk about this all the time. You want your kids to play hard and all the way through the year, but you also got to have them peaking at the right time. And you can't have a lot of injuries and stuff like that. And obviously, Booker T. Washington is playing hard, and they're peaking at the right time, and they're playing good football. And so now they will go up against Catholic of Montgomery. And it would not surprise me when we're sitting at the Waffle House Friday night somewhere and talking about the scores as they come in to see Booker T. Washington on the winning side of this game against Catholic of Montgomery.
Yeah, they better strap on. I know Catholic Montgomery is good, but Booker T's on a roll. So it won't surprise me this time if they win. They're definitely on a roll here, and like you said, peaking at the right time.
Let's look at the north side of this bracket and see what the matchups are. Of course, the north side of the bracket will be Cherokee County, and they will be taking on Westminster Christian in a ball game that will be decide the north side of the bracket and who will end up in Tuscaloosa to play for a state championship. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know very much about either one of these teams, but obviously to be playing in the semifinals of the Class 4A classification in the state of Alabama, both teams have to be very good. Cherokee County, they're known as the Warriors, and they won their ball game against West Morgan on Friday night. Very close game, 28-27 was that quarterfinal game, so some folks from West Morgan went home with broken hearts. And so as they lose by 1 point in that ball game, and of course Cherokee County, they're 12-1 on the year. Now Westminster Christian, the Wildcats, they defeated Brooks by a score of 48-27, and of course the Wildcats, they're 11-2 on the year, so two very good football teams, and they'll be battling it out to see who ends up in Tuscaloosa at Bryant-Denny Stadium and playing for a state championship in Class 4A.
Yeah, Westminster is a very good team. They got beat by I think Madison Academy, and playing out of their classification, and which is actually below them. But Madison Academy is a very good football team. But Westminster's up in Huntsville, Cherokee County. I know where they're at because they're close to where our buddy Jeff Kaiser used to live there, close to Piedmont. They're in Center, Alabama. But yeah, Westminster's got a good team, but I kind of got the feeling that Cherokee, they're going to have to. It'd be an upset if Westminster beats Cherokee County.
So as we move down to Class 3A, and of course we've been talking about Mobile Christian all year long. Now, you talk about a war. This is going to be a war because we saw St. James last year, and we know that St. James has a very good football team, but they will be taking on Mobile Christian. St. James will be at Mobile Christian on Friday night at Harrison Field, right there on Cottage Hill Road in Mobile, and it's going to be it's going to be a war. You've got Mobile Christian. We talked about them. They're not large number wise. They don't have a bunch of kids dressed out, but the ones that they have dressed out are basically handpicked by Coach Ronnie Cottrell. And, I mean, he's got a good group. And, man, they're big across the offensive and defensive fronts. And, I mean, they're just – we saw them several times. They're a good football team.
Oh, and Mobile Christian is not a large school. I know lots of the folks over there. Know Coach Cottrell. Coached lots of the kids that went to one of my players from the youth leagues was their quarterback who went on sign for West Alabama, Jordan Aubrey. And so know lots of the people over there. I love them all. They're great. It's a small school. If they were in the public school system, they'd barely be a 2A school. It's a very small school, which reminds me, anybody that wants to go to that Mobile Christian St. James private school too, it will be standing room only if you don't get there real early. It's an appropriate size stadium for a 2A, 3A school, but it's not a large stadium, and the parking's kind of limited. But but that would be a good one if we weren't going to go to the Saraland game. It's at St. James, isn't it? I'm sorry, it's at St. James.
No, it's actually, I believe it's at.
Is it at Mobile Christian?
It's at Mobile Christian, yes.
Okay, it is at Mobile Christian. So yeah, it'll be crowded. So get there early, and if we didn't have one to go to, if we weren't going to the Saraland game, that'd be a good one to go to. But St. James being the defending state champions, and Mobile Christian, like you said, they're just I think I don't remember what we counted, 35, 36 players, but I mean they look like college level 35. Players, all of them.
Yeah, those offensive linemen, they've got about 3 or 4 kids that are, well above 6 foot, well above 300 pounds.
Yeah.
I mean, you got some heavy eaters right there across the front, and I mean they block. They're not big and slow. They're big and fast, which is
they're athletic. Yeah, they are.
It's a bad combination if you're having to line up across from them. For sure. St. James, they made it to this game by defeating one of the teams that we followed and saw several times this year. The Thomasville Tigers beat them 28-26 in a very hard-fought game. And, of course, Mobile Christian, they defeated Trinity, just doubled them up 42-21 in their quarterfinal game last Friday night, and that's how they advanced to make it to where they are now. If we look at the north side of the bracket in Class 3A, then Madison Academy, we just mentioned Madison Academy as being a very good football game, a very good football team. They're going to be taking on Geraldine at Geraldine in the north side of the bracket in Class 3A, the semifinals here in the state of Alabama. And, of course, Madison Academy, they defeated Sylvania 35-28 in a good close game in the quarterfinals this past Friday night. Geraldine, the Bulldogs, they defeated Lauderdale County, got all over them 55-20. So obviously Geraldine is a very good football team, and but I tell you, I've been to a lot of the Super 7 state championship weeks over the past years, and Madison Academy's always been a good football team, and you usually see them playing in those state final games for state championships quite often. So Madison Academy, a good football, a good football team, but we'll just have to wait and see how this one turns out as they'll play to see who ends up in Tuscaloosa this Friday night.
There you go.
So as we continue, that was Class 3A, of course, and we continue working our way through as we get down to the 2A semifinals. And, of course, these 2A semifinals really didn't turn out kind of the way we expected a lot of the 2A brackets to turn out. Looking at the south side of the bracket, you've got kind of that Montgomery area down, kind of looking at things. You've got Reeltown is going to be taking on B.B. Comer in the south end of the bracket in Class 2A. They will be playing at B.B. Comer. And, of course, in their game this past week, Reeltown, the Rebels, they defeated Cottonwood by a score of 42-22. B.B. Comer, the Tigers, they defeated the Clark County Bulldogs from right over here close to me at Grove Hill. And, Clark County had played good all year long. And of course, their record was a little, they finished the regular season 5-5, but they had played out of classification, played up. They were undefeated and actually the Class 2A Region 1 champion, but they end up losing to B.B. Comer by a score of 42-22 this Friday night, and that's what leads you into this game. That will be a semifinal game between these two schools. It will be Reeltown and B.B. Comer at B.B. Comer at Legion Stadium there on campus for them.
Yeah, and then those teams are familiar with each other up in the same area up there northeast of Montgomery. B.B. Comer being that's Sylacauga with a lot of tradition behind them over the years. I can remember, back when we were in school, B.B. Comer had good football teams, and they've maintained that throughout. So there are two teams that should be familiar with each other, and should be a good football game.
If we look at the north side of the bracket in Class 2A, it's going to be Pisgah and Fife. Now, I don't know much about Pisgah, but obviously they're a good football team to be where they are. But, do know a little bit about Fife, and the reason I do is because the Fife Red Devils, you constantly, year in and year out, hear about how good their football team is, and they have a incredible winning tradition. And just to kind of tell you the way these two teams got to where they were, Pisgah beat Tuscaloosa Academy 36-29 in a very close, hard-fought game this past Friday night. So that's what got the Eagles where they are. But if you look at the score on the other side, where Fife, the Red Devils, they defeated Locust Fork by 30 points. They beat them 63-33 in their quarterfinal game this past Friday night. So, it's going to be incredible. The Red Devils on the year are 12-1, and both teams, actually, Pisgah also 12-1. So this is going to be a battle of 12-1 teams to see who gets to go to Tuscaloosa and play for that state championship.
Yeah, well, you're exactly right about Fife. I can remember when we were in school back in the 70s. The Fife Red Devils, of course, we were the Blue Devils, but the Fife Red Devils, they've got a ton of tradition. And as teams go, kind of reminds me of T.R. Miller Tigers a little bit. I think they've got 6 state championships, but they played in more than that. I don't know how many they've been in total. You might know, but they've won 6 state championships since the state championship, the way it is now, started in 1971 with the playoffs in state Alabama. And so they're a very good football team located up there close to Fort Payne area, and Gunnersville and Northeast corner. They've got a lot of tradition. So I don't know much, really much about Pisgah. But it should be a good ball game. So that'll be a good one. But I'd be surprised if Fife didn't come out on top on that one.
Yeah, just looking at some of the information on Fife that you can find, one of the things that is pointed out is that the Fife Red Devils, they have made 43 playoff appearances with an overall record of 69-36. So in semifinal games, they're 6-2 at home. When they play their semifinal games at home, so I mean, they're
think about what you just said. So how many they've made? 49.
43.
So there's only 43. So there's only the playoff system's only been in play for like 50 something years.
Yeah.
I mean, they started in 1971.
Yeah.
So that's pretty. Or maybe 70. When did it start? 70 or 71 when they started the current playoff system. So you got to think about it, 53 years, and they've made the playoffs 49 times, won 6 state championships, and been in numerous other ones or in semifinals. So they like I said, kind of remind you of T.R. Miller a little bit, maybe even exceed T.R. Miller in terms of their winning traditions.
Yeah, they're a good football team, no doubt, and I would expect that Fife will end up being in Tuscaloosa, playing for a state championship after this game on this Friday night. As we continue to look at teams now here's a team that's close to me over here. As a matter of fact, I've been over to Leroy several times and seen baseball games and football games and the like. And so the Leroy Bears, they're going to be at home this Friday night. The problem is that they're hosting a very good Elba football team. Now Leroy's good, but Elba is right there with them. I mean, this is going to be a hard fought game, and I mean, Elba. We've talked about Elba all year long, talked about Leroy all year long because of their closeness to us here in this area of the country, and I mean, this is going to be a war in Leroy on Friday night. I mean, it'll be a tough one and would be a good game to see in Class 1A here in the state of Alabama.
Well, it took Elba a little while, I think, after a few games. But after a few games, it was clear what a good team they had, and they spent most of the year at ranked number 1 in 1A, and
they're 13-0 on the year. So
they beat numerous teams out of their classifications. So they're that good. But Leroy's good too. I mean, Leroy beat the good Millery team. Handled everybody. They're very good too. I'd almost call that game even Steven as far as going into it as to who the winner would be. I think I'd give the edge to Elba, but.
Well, if you look at just the stats of the ball game, Elba's at 13-0, Leroy's at 12-0. Elba is scoring 51 points a game. Leroy's averaging 39. Now, defensive stats wise, the defense of Elba giving up 14.5 points a game, and Leroy only giving up 9.5. So I mean, you got good offensive football, you got great defensive football. We always say, as Coach Bryant used to say, defense wins championships, and so that's going to be a good hard fought game, and that game will be this Friday night over at Leroy on campus, right there off of Highway 43 as you get into Leroy, right there at Leroy School. I mean, it's going to be a good hard fought game, and of course, to be honest with you, I mean, with my familiarity with Leroy, and of course I still officiate high school softball. I've had numerous encounters with the softball team last year from Leroy. They had a very good girls softball team, and so I'm familiar with them. I would really be pulling for Leroy in this one if I had, just because of my familiarity with them. Not that I have anything against Elba, but just because I know some folks over there around the Leroy area, and I wish them well on this game on Friday night.
Absolutely, that's what I'll be rooting for also.
So as we look at the final game that we've got to look at this week, this will decide who goes and plays in the other side of the bracket, of course, either Leroy or Elba, one of those two teams will end up playing for a state championship in Tuscaloosa, and the other two teams that are battling for their opportunity to go and do the same thing will be Pickens County and Coosa Christian. Don't really know much about these two teams because of them being up north. I've tried to learn what I can about them just by reading up on them because I want to be able to talk intelligently about the two schools. And in looking at things, Pickens County, their name is the Tornadoes. The Pickens County Tornadoes. They defeated Wadley this past Friday night by a score of 18-14 in a very close ball game to advance. Coosa Christian, the conquerors of Coosa Christian, they defeated Hackleburg, got all over them. 63-13 was the final in that one in their quarterfinal game, and so that brings these two teams together. And what's strangely enough is that if you look at the records of the teams, the Conquerors, they entered this game with they've got a record of 8-5, and so the Pickens County team, they're 10-3, and Coosa Christian is 8-5. But it's going to be settled on the field this Friday night as these two teams will battle each other for an opportunity to go play for a state championship at Bryant-Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa. So this will be a good ball game, and this will be to decide who makes that trip to T-Town.
Yeah, and Coosa Christian, they're 8-4, but they've cruised through the playoffs, and a lot of times they're a private school up between Rainbow City and Gadsden, and so I would imagine they're sort of like Mobile Christian. Some of the others, they play up and out of their classification some. So, but it should be a good game, but between those two to find out who they'll play, Leroy or Elba.
So that's going to do it for all the semifinal games that are going on this week in the state of Alabama. Of course, we talked about ball games from 7A all the way down to Class 1A. Of course, the 7A game will be the state championship game. That's already set. And so now the games that will be played all across the state, there's only, there's six classifications and 2 games in each, so 12 ball games. So there's 12 ball games left to decide who will go to Tuscaloosa and represent their schools and their communities in state championship football games at Bryant-Denny Stadium. So it's a very exciting time of the year. All of these places will just, because people like us, from all over the place, Rick, they just love high school football like we do. So even if they don't have a dog in the fight, they're going to pack up and go to the game closest to them and enjoy high school football on a Friday night. There's just nothing like this time of year. The pageantry and these are games being played right now that these kids will talk about for the rest of their lives. And I tell you one thing, not only do the kids talk about them, but you and I get a chance to talk about them too. We're constantly, of course, Rick and I, we both grew up in Atmore, Alabama, and got a chance to see over the years some very good Escambia County high school football teams. The Blue Devils winning state championships in 1974 and also back in 1983. My brother Jimmy was a part of that team that won that state championship. And we still tell stories about going and watching those teams play. And memories that are made on these Friday nights on these fields. These kids are making, these are lifelong memories. These memories never go away.
Yeah, they last forever. Just like with us. We remember stories from football games, practices from the 70s, and now we're in our 60s. And but it's if you're close to a high school football game this Friday, get out and go to it. I think the weather's supposed to be pretty nice, and it's just a lot of fun. You meet the nicest people.
You do. You meet the nicest people, and hey, do like Rick and I do. Find you a Waffle House somewhere after the ball game, and go in and have you some eggs and a waffle and talk about it. Just making an experience because it's just awesome. I enjoy it and just really just really, I wouldn't want to do this time of year. This is what I want to do. I want to go and watch high school football. And of course, you and I, we did around 15 weeks of high school football on the radio earlier this year, and now even with no games to do on the radio, we're still following high school football, and we'll continue to do it until they pull the plug on it for the year, and we got to move on to something else.
That's right.
Anyway, well, thank you folks so much for dropping in with us tonight and being a part of this. We would just, love for you to continue to follow us here on the SportzMoose Media Podcast. It is available anywhere that you would want to pick up a podcast from. I mean, it's iHeartRadio, YouTube. We get it out on YouTube. Just anywhere that you would want to put it on the Podbean channel. We've got it there. We've got it just anywhere that you can pick up a podcast. You can find us and listen to the SportzMoose Media Podcast that we do each and every week, talking about high school football. Now, Rick and I have already said, and we'll get into more detail on that as soon as we got it all finalized, but we're going to continue to do this SportzMoose Media Podcast even after football season is over with, and we're gonna move into kind of an outdoorsy regimen, if you will. We'll start talking a little hunting and fishing and different things. We're going to talk about stuff that is of interest to us, and certainly we would hope would be of interest to you. And not only that, we're looking at lining up some interviews of different things. Matter of fact, I'm sitting here, talking to y'all now, and I'm looking at a book that I recently got in the mail. It's called Winning the Head Game: The Key to Elite Athletic Status, and it was written by Coach Sonny Smith, former Auburn University head basketball coach, and a friend of mine and Rick's, a gentleman that we know from here in the Atmore area, Mr. Lou Vickery. And so we'll be interviewing Lou about his book later on, as soon as we make contact with him and set it up. He's already sent word back to me that he is interested in being interviewed about his book, as he does a book tour promoting the book. He's out about all over the place and promoting this book. So we want to give him some time on the SportzMoose Media Podcast and let him talk about his book, Winning the Head Game: The Key to Elite Athletic Status. And that's something that, in just reading some of the stuff on the book, kind of before we get into it, this is a book that would be a good read for coaches, fans, and especially dads that have kids that you're raising to hopefully be an elite athlete one day themselves. So, youth coaches would benefit from this book. So we're going to give you an opportunity to hear from one of the men that actually wrote this book, Mr. Lou Vickery, and that'll be in weeks to come. So just pay attention, and we'll get that word out for you when we line up that interview and get it done. Well, Rick, that's going to do it for us tonight, buddy. Good to hear from you again. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family, and your bride Janet. So and we'll make plans to be at a ball game on Friday night as well.
All right, Ricky, I appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah, man. You have a good one, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, brother.